Well, good morning, everybody. On this another beautiful Sunday morning in Costa Rica, we are a bit overcast. Our rainy season is starting, and my garden is just absolutely singing after a very long dry spell. We also have a live volcano on the other side of the valley that has become somewhat concerning for a great many people, but so far, here we are. My name is Katia de Luisa. I have been a dementia educator for 25 years now. I work here in Costa Rica. I've published a book called Journey Through the Infinite Mind, The Science and Spirituality of Dementia, in both English and in Spanish. And this is my show, Reading Dementia, and today's article that I'll be reading and discussing and explaining as I go along is called The Multidimensional Selves of Dementia. I want to be able to take dementia, mainstream dementia information to another level. I want people, the readers of my articles and the listeners, to step into the shoes of the person with dementia, which creates an increased sense of empathy, which is best for everybody. In other words, when you increase your empathy, which means there's a connection, a very strong heart connection with the other person, your care is better, your energy levels are higher, and both people truly benefit from increased empathy. So that's what my articles are trying to convey. Okay, this reading will be recorded. It's being recorded, and I will put it on my YouTube channel where my other Reading Dementia articles are, and I'll post it tomorrow. And I guess let's just get started, okay? Trying to think if there's any other housekeeping I need to include in the beginning here. However, okay, so we're getting started now with the article, and as I'm reading, I will stop and discuss a little bit about what I've just read. So if you've already read this article, because it was posted a few days ago on quite a few sites, there'll be a little bit more explanation as we go along. And anyone who's listening to the live session, please, you can leave your questions in the comments. And usually people leave them after with the recording, because Sundays people are sometimes a little busy. But if you leave your questions in the comments while we're in this live session, I can answer your questions or comments immediately after the reading is finished. Okay, the multidimensional selves of dementia. Families of loved ones with progressing dementia often perceive their loved ones as a stranger who is an unrecognizable personality. Who is this person you once knew all or most of your life? Why has dementia changed them, and how does this happen? I can't begin to tell you how often people have told me, caregivers have told me, that they feel like they're living with a stranger. When this starts to happen, it seems there's an emotional separation, an emotional distancing that starts to happen right at a time when the person with dementia needs closeness, and when also the person who's caring for them can't afford to lose closeness with that person. So here, let's talk a little bit more about that. Even before memory loss became apparent, your loved one, who was always a calm person, now has less control over their emotions. They were active and involved. Now you can't get them to do anything. Or they were fastidious and tidy, but lately they leave the dishes in the sink and the bathroom smells. Even at these earliest signs of dementia, your loved one is beginning to change. When you know that person to be, say for instance, a tidy person, and you start seeing their house in disarray, or their emotions are out of control, when they were normally a very calm person. It's kind of hard to see the person that you once knew in this new personality. But does this mean they are transforming into someone else? Who am I? I find this question very hard to answer. Is what I do who I am? Painter, writer, dementia educator? Let's see. Is it my character? I'm strong-willed, stubborn, kind, caring. I'm also insightful and intuitive. Maybe I am what I've learned, like my education, my religion, my upbringing, the totality of my past indoctrination. The Katya of this moment, writing this article about what happens to the self during dementia, is the sum of all her experiences. And tomorrow, anything can happen to change her forever. All right, now here's why. Just a couple of examples of how I've been changed forever, with just one event. Somehow or another, changed the older self into a completely different version. I've been changing into different people all my life. When my first child was born, that carefree 60s hippie transformed into a single mother struggling to make ends meet. I broke a hip at 65 and was left with mobility challenges and a permanent limp. The active walker, biker, and horseback rider I was before became someone else. I now walk with a cane. It was very hard for me to deal with the breaking of the hip because I was such a physically active person and suddenly I wasn't anymore. I really saw myself as a different person. I saw myself much more vulnerable and weak, and I dealt with a lot of depression. I was not the person that I was before that moment that I fell and felt those bones crack. So anybody can become different, a completely different personality in a matter of seconds, actually, depending on what's happening to you in life. Everyone is in a constant state of becoming. No one stays precisely the same. Time is a sequence of experiences that creates the person we are now. We are composed of the puzzle pieces of the many different roles we have played in life. And when we add or subtract a piece, the picture of who we are today changes. I'm not the same person at 77, which is how old I am now, as I was at 20. People who know me now would think I'm a stranger if they saw what my 20-year-old self was like. Oh my gosh, definitely. It isn't just the physical changes. I have shaped into who I am in this present using my past. And if any of my prior selves took over today, no one would know it's me. If I became the totality of that 20-year-old, if I was suddenly 20 years old, not that I looked 20 years old, but I acted like I did at 20 years old, believe me, people would not recognize me as Katya. Excuse me. Time for water. Okay. How many selves has your loved one been in their lives? Would you recognize your loved one if they transformed into a past self? Would they be recognizable if they lost the parts that shaped the familiar person you've known? When your mother forgets you are her daughter, or forgets she ever had children, would that missing piece of being a mother change who she seems to be in this moment? Motherhood has a habit of changing women completely. We're never the same after we have our children, and that can be good, it can be bad. It was good and bad throughout our motherhood. But if suddenly that experience, that past experience that we had, disappeared because we didn't remember it, would that change who I am, who we are today, how we what we seem to be like today if those pieces of our experiences were suddenly disappearing? Okay. Your loved one has played many roles in their life, and although short-term memory is damaged, billions of bits of who they were in the past are still alive in their long-term memory. You may have always known your dad to be quiet and even-tempered, and now he's always angry. But he might have been a rebellious teen, or an introvert to whom no one paid attention, which caused him to have some pent-up anger. Those past parts might be slipping into the present, especially if they are unresolved issues. So there's parts of who we used to be. At 20 years old, I was a pretty angry kid. I mean, basically, I just bulldozed my way through life, and heaven forbid anybody should get in my way. At 77, I've become a lot calmer. I've learned to control a lot of my impulses, not all of them, but as many as I possibly can. And hopefully, I'm a more controlled, emotionally controlled person now than I was at 20. But what if that 20-year-old just kind of snuck in occasionally, and suddenly that angry bulldozer control freak was suddenly present in this person? It would be all of a sudden, for anybody who's caring for me, it would be very difficult for them to deal with that change. Okay, everyone is a composition of multidimensional selves, lots of people. All those people we once were molded into our present. With dementia, each day there is a deterioration of self. Sometimes mom disappears, and sometimes she's back. There are times when dad is the anger-filled teen self. Then he later becomes the quiet, contented person who sits on the couch. Every sensation, emotion, and experience is stored in our 100 billion neurons. And the information we have accumulated is relayed through an intricate network of over 1 trillion connections to those neurons and the information in them. Dementia destroys these connections and many neurons, and also destroys many neurons containing information, but all is not lost. All is not lost because you have 100 billion neurons, and if you're still alive, you have some healthy neuron information throughout the brain. And one of the things that I discovered was that when you gave prompts, and that'll come up in the next sentence, in the next paragraph, helping to lead a conversation where you're kind of the interviewer, and you let whatever elements come out of them, you kind of lead it into more, which helps to connect damaged connections to neurons. Because our brain is constantly looking for pathways to find information. Okay, I hope that makes sense to people. Experiences are in themselves composed of millions of puzzle pieces. Okay, our experiences are a myriad of pieces of information that our brain has to store. Your wedding experience, sensations of joy and anxiety are stored in different neurons in different parts of your brain. The memory of the color of your dress, trying it on, the feel of the flow as you walk down the aisle are archived in various parts of the brain. Every smell, color, shape, action, and emotion of that experience is a piece of millions, maybe billions, of neurons. In a fraction of a second, your brain has to gather all of those pieces to remember just a part of that day. So say, for instance, you just want to remember, you're remembering the walking down the aisle and seeing your soon-to-be husband waiting for you anxiously at the altar. Just that particular segment of your wedding memories is billions, millions of pieces of information. It's the church filled with people. It's the shapes. It's the priest. It's your husband. It's the anxiety you're feeling, the happiness. All of these things are, all of these emotions and perceptions are stored in pieces, like puzzle pieces. And so as soon as you're going to remember walking down that aisle, all of your brain has to pull all that together in a fraction of a second. It's quite an amazing process, and it's always a full brain process. In a fraction of a second, your brain has to gather all the pieces to remember just a part of that day. This means that despite dementia brain damage, information fragments from past selves do remain in healthy neurons. This is why helping those with dementia with memory prompts, like a wedding picture, can often bring back that event, and for a moment you get a glimpse of mom again. I love to tell people to work with photo albums. Take the picture out, because if there's a shiny surface, they won't see it, they have trouble seeing the photo. So if you can open up the shiny surface and point to the photo, and you can talk about the memory of the wedding, say for instance. You weren't there, but you can say, oh, what a beautiful dress you had, Mom, and this is Dad over here. Giving her some prompts to remember her wedding, you might be very surprised at how much of her memory still remains, because the prompts will help the brain to find those healthy connections to the information, because that information is stored in pieces, in billions of pieces, in billions of neurons. Excuse me. We have a lot of dust from our volcano going off. Okay. Everyone is a symphony of experiential elements that play together to create the person we are today. Even if elements in a music symphony get mixed up or play a different tune, it is still the same orchestra. It's still the orchestra. We have a symphony orchestra here in Costa Rica. Regardless of whether one of those instruments is out of tune or not, the orchestra still exists. So if you look at all of us as an orchestra, we are an orchestra of all of the experiences we've had in life. Your loved one is a multidimensional piece of their entire self, playing as an orchestra. And the orchestra that is the sum total of their life is now being led by a dementia director reading a mixed up music sheet. I like to think of it as dementia is the director, and it's just mixing up all of the music. All right, so we're coming to the end here. Learn to love this new version of them, even though it's challenging. No matter how different they may seem to you, it's still them, and they are still here, and they need you. So that's the end of this live Facebook, and I hope that I'm having a little bit of your stream is experiencing disconnection issues. Well, I hope it's still okay. So, looks like I still have internet. Anyway, I'd like to let you know next week my article will be called Emotions Are Contagious. I will talk to you about how your emotional states transfer to your loved one, and their emotional states, how it affects you. So be sure to tune in. That's May 4th, 9 o'clock. Let's see, the last thing I've got to show you is this is my book, the English version, Journey Through the Infinite Mind, and the Spanish version is Viaje a través de la mente infinita. These are available on Amazon. I'm presently trying to find funds to print our Spanish version here in Costa Rica so that I can make it more affordable. Shipping is pretty expensive to Costa Rica. It really takes up a lot of the price of getting a book in Spanish here. So I'm going to be printing it here in Costa Rica because it will be much more affordable and available to people, the local people here, and also be donating them to the library so people can get the book for free. So I guess that's the end of my live Facebook. I hope you got some useful information out of it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. That is, if the volcano doesn't cover us all, but hopefully it won't. So until next week, thank you for watching. I appreciate it.